Hi, Lina. How are you doing? Okay. No, I think you have your instruments actually ready in order to gather the information. I think it's just to keep in mind some things. I think with interviews, something we always have to keep in mind, especially with semi-structured interviews, is that you need to try to get information in a way that it will avoid somehow expected answers. That means that obviously administrators are going to be in an interview kind of defensive, somehow trying to show the best they can do. So even though you have in this format like structured questions and questions that are already written, the idea is that you try to carry on with the interview as based on what they answer. And so you can make it a kind of semi-structure in a way that based on what they say, you keep like the general topic, and from there you start gathering, trying to get the information that you want to know. It means that I would avoid like asking questions like directly somehow, directly as they're written here. For example, percepciones acerca del idioma inglés, you can start, okay, uh, wait a minute, anything you can say first that they can talk about the programs that they have and these programs in this institution. What do you think is the role of learning English? I mean, why students should learn English from your perception? So I think it's just when you carry on the conversation, try to do it in a way that it does not, it's not asking the questions like this. No, it's just like it's a conversation where you try to get the person a little bit relaxed to the point that he or she can give you the information in a more confident way. If not, they will give you just short answers and always trying to give you the best and expected answers. Obviously, trying to take to keep their persona, their face. So, but I think you got the idea here. For example, this one, ¿cuáles son las políticas y objetivos de CUDES respecto a la enseñanza de inglés? What is it that you want to make sure that they know the policies? Because I don't know if the web page they have the objectives or something about learning. About the language program there. If they don't have it, so you can tell them like, yeah, you can ask them like they already have written the objectives and the policies with regarding to English teaching. Even though I think you told me that they do have an institutional uh, policy of bilingualism, something like that, but I'm not sure. Yeah, so ¿cuáles son las políticas y los objetivos de con respecto a la enseñanza de inglés? It's a question that will take you more like to they remember the objectives or not. It's like you can find a way to say, okay, and actually that'll come out from the first question. They would say, no, yo creo que es importante porque los chicos como son profesionales necesitan aprender, ta, 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 ta. Bueno, so you can, bueno, en ese sentido, que se ha trazado la institución para justamente ayudar a que estos chicos logren ese propósito que tú acabas de mencionar. So always try to introduce the next question based on something they are saying. So that'll make the conversation more fluent, and it's not like question by question. Okay, so you can have this questionnaire because it allows you to keep in mind the things that you like to keep to ask. But the most important is to keep in mind like the general topics, which are these. So once they start talking, you see that you can you can cover most of the things you want to know. So just semi-structured questions are more, semi-structured interviews are interviews that actually when you are carrying on the interview, something in a more relaxed, the questions are not just that set like yes or no, or how many, what level, yes, something more fluent. But I think it's okay, as you can keep it while you're talking to them. Try to have an idea. Like you can say, okay, yes, this question, but as long as you're talking to them, you know what you're covering and what not. So make it more fluent. In the focus groups, okay, the focus groups actually, my suggestion is, okay, the purpose of the focus group actually is to enhance discussion around certain topics. So the key is to have a group of people interacting and talking about something, and in that interaction and that discussion, interesting things will come out because actually the good thing about this, the difference between the focus groups and the interviews, of course, is in this case is that it's a more naturalistic setting. I mean, it's in the conversation that people start talking. Sometimes when you start at focus groups, it goes. I mean, you didn't have to intervene a lot. You know, there must be not a lot of intervention unless it's needed, because people start talking. So the only thing that you just do guide the conversation. So sometimes you don't need to answer with questions. Sometimes you need to answer by for example, mentioning an example or something or a sentence about the importance of English. I don't know. You have to think about prompts instead of questions. Like give prompts to get people talking. For example, percepciones sobre el lenguaje and the teaching of English in CUDES. What do you think students in CUDES need to learn English? What do you consider the objective of teaching of English in CUDES? So in this case, for example, you can start like with everyone. I mean, when they start talking, something general to start with. I don't know, like, I mean, como profesores de inglés aquí en Colombia y en Cali, ellos, pues, ¿cuál creen que es la importancia de aprender ese idioma? So they will start talking, so, okay, so what is important? Surely they will start talking about the institution. Okay, y en los estudiantes, específicamente para estos estudiantes, I mean, in particular, what is it that they need to learn when we talk about the English? So they will come, okay? So then you can tell, okay, so how are these, I mean, students are studying English here, so what is the I mean, how has the institution, what are the objectives that have been established for these students in these conditions? So as you can, once you start prompting, probably they will talk about it on their own. But the most important thing is that you can find a way to make it interact. I mean, one said, no, mira, es que I believe that students need to learn because of this, this and the others. Okay, what do you think about that? I mean, if somebody said something, oh, I believe that, for example, I believe the students don't need to learn English in this context because it's unnecessary. Because when they finish their professions, they have no place to go, or something like that. So in that case, okay, what do you think about this? I mean, like, what's your opinion about his opinion? So you get people talking about the issue, and in that conversation, interesting things will come out. And the points that you need to really be very an active listener. So because while they're talking, there will be opportunities for you to say something to prompt the conversation, the discussion. I mean, I'm sorry, to lead the discussion. So what I'm saying is that try to keep it like discussing about certain issues instead of asking questions by questions and making an answer. So you can have like a guideline for your questions, but I suggest you create prompts like conversation, like examples, like statements, like ideas. Okay, what do you think about this idea of teaching English? Boom, any idea. So from there they start discussing. Anecdote. Okay, mira, when I work, un estudiante de inglés podría decir que no le sirve para nada estudiar esto porque le contesta, What do you think about this in terms of your students in this institution? So from there they can start. So you can think of examples, anecdotes, short sentences that will trigger the conversation. That's the point. I will make him talk. So this is not the same dynamics as an interview where you go questions and sometimes there could be a little bit structured. Not. This is more like trying to find a way to make these people talk and discuss, and that's the key. That from that discussion you can get extremely useful information and data, because when some people realize that they think or they have certain opinion once they start interacting with others. So through the interaction is that they actually display, or actually they realize that they think in a certain way about something. Okay, so just keep it open. So if I were you, you can have the main, these main topics, and you say, for example, I would start by showing, for example, a headline from newspaper where that says newspaper, for example, with I don't know, like, English is the key to grow professionally. So what do you think about that, and what do you think about that in terms of your students at CUDES? Of course, you say, but that's bias. No, I mean, you're just beginning conversation. Probably someone that will say no. And in the moment you say, it's just, or you can actually, in a process, when they're talking, do you think it's just, they just need to learn English exclusively to have a better job? Or what do you think? Is there other needs they have or something? So try to find a way, like, they can get, they can start talking about this in a way that is more flexible. Okay, or you just can keep the questions, but but always try to present it in a way that is less like, what do you think students in class need to learn English? So I think from there you can start with that question, and surely the discussion would lead you to these ones. So you can start. Just keep in mind to make it more flexible. I mean, this is interviews with teachers from other subjects. You mentioned that you're going to have the interviews because you got a few of them. I think this one could be without problems another focus group. I don't know, but it's up to you. Focus group, because you need to know, it's like, in general, in that discussion, it's interesting to see what they have to say based on from the teacher. But if you consider that interview will give you more information because you want to specifically focus on the different programs, that's okay. You want to see exactly what are the needs that this teacher consider the students in his programs have regarding learning English. So if that's the case, that you need that specific information, fine. This one, I don't know if you talk about focus groups for students. It says teachers. I'm not sure if it's. I think it seems to me that it's for students. And the same thing. Try to, even you got the main idea. I mean, the main, how do you say, like, the main guidelines of what you want to talk, the topics. So you can have the questions, but remember the idea is to keep it making talk, and by giving prompts, by giving examples, by confronting opinions, etc., etc. Okay, so just let it be fluent. This is a focus group here, because I think that I read that you said that you would apply focus groups. But in general, I think this is well done. It's just to remember to read the chapter of Flix. He gives good suggestions about what need to keep in mind when you're doing focus groups and interviews. But it's more like in terms of how to get the information. Because remember, one thing you have to keep in mind when you're doing interviews, there's an effect that in which people always try to answer what they think you expect from them. And in interviews, and so people actually try to answer what you need, what they think you need to listen, and sometimes they're not really willing to talk a lot. Focus groups, even though allow most interaction, it does not allow like getting a deep knowledge about something. So each instrument or data collection technique has its pros and cons. As long as you keep that in mind while you're doing it, you know that you can actually find a way to get the information that you need. But just to keep that in mind. Other than that, I think it's a great job, and it shows that you have actually the questions and the way you being structured the main topics show a clear focus on what you need to get for your research question. Okay, if you have any questions, please just let me know.